Started off on mute. Let's
Starting
go.
off on fire. This has been
Let's have a Thursday, my friend.
It is a Thursday. It definitely. Hang on one second. You want to start the intro, Dylan?
Why not? What's
Yeah.
going on, everybody, and welcome to the BK Nothing But Nets podcast. I'm here today, joined by the main man, Gary. Also, have a nice little guest on today, Pete from Nets Fans You Know. And today we're just going to be talking about the draft. We're 13 days away. Jeremiah Fears, who could be on the board for a potential second trade in terms of how they can move up into the lottery. Just getting into the basics. Pete, welcome. Let us know where we can find you, and then we'll get into it.
Sure, you can find me at NetFriendsYouKnow on Twitter and YouTube. I drop an episode almost every week. I try to drop 3 episodes a month. I'm going to have an episode dropping next week. You can check that out. I talk to beat reporters, draft gurus, all that good stuff. And yeah, let's go. I'm ready.
I do want to just touch on this. A little bit of breaking news, a little bit of a rumor. It's the off season for us. I mean, it's gonna be interesting. So let's just touch on this real quick. So I close out of it. I'm having myself a morning. Wow. Hang on. Give me 1 second. Anyway, Ari reported, and you can take it for what it's worth, that Brooklyn is considering trading up to 3 on Paul George's contract. We've discussed it before. To me, Ace Bailey to Philly is a weird pick with the timing of it all. Mm-hmm. Guys, Pete, you're our guest. I'll start with you, then I'll go to Dylan. Would you be open to trading for the 3rd pick, but you have to take on Paul George's contract?
Man, we were talking about this before, and I kind of wanted to save my answer for right now. I don't want to go on too long with it, but it really depends on what the other parts of the deal are. Are we taking on multiple contracts? Are we giving up 8? Are we giving up 19? Are we giving up that future Philly first that we have? It really all depends. If it's just that contract and like 19, I think I would do it. I really think I would do it. It really depends on the other parts of the deal. And also, you have my DM open with you before you leak anything.
Oh, all right. Let me get this off.
Nice. Oh. That's where all the good stuff is.
Yeah. You guys don't want to see that. That's the incriminating stuff. I'm not a very good criminal this morning. Yeah. All right. Dylan, let me get to you. Your thoughts on this. I'll give my brief thoughts, and then we'll get into the Jeremiah Fears and the NBA draft stuff.
Yeah, I think that this is a horrible idea, and I also like we talked about it backstage. I just don't think he's very credible. It's just not a smart move for 2 options. One, it's clear and obvious as day that people are questioning the ability of Ace Bailey. And if this many teams have this many problems with trying to move up to 3 or stay at 3 or look at him at 3, then clearly there's some form of issue that likely should not cause for you to try and trade aggressively up 5 spots. It's going to cost a ton. If you have to take on Paul George's contract, that's horrible too. It has 3 years left on the deal at $54 million. That kind of limits what you can do as a rebuilding roster moving forward. I wouldn't do it personally. I don't think it's worth it. I value having 2, maybe even 3, mid to late lottery picks rather than just moving up to 3 and just to do so. Right? There's really no need to do so if players are available with similar upside, if not safer floors, a couple of picks down the line. I'm eyeing picks number 10 and 14 as realistic trade opportunities. I just put out an article last night, kind of showcasing how that's possible. Whether that be a 3-team trade with Phoenix and San Antonio, landing Brooklyn the 14th pick, moving Cam Johnson in 19 for Dylan Brooks in the 10th pick that was reported by Brian Lewis. There's multiple ways that Brooklyn can move up in this draft and still be able to hold on to 8. And I think that's what's most important at this point is because of how good this draft class is, there's no need to exert draft capital and assets for 1 pick when you can do it for multiple. So I think that they need to take it very seriously and trying to land as much talent as possible rather than just one guy.
All right, so I got a couple thoughts on this. I'm not opposed to it. I would imagine this means giving up 8. If it doesn't mean giving up 8, then I'm in. If it's just 19, let's just do it. To me, the Nets need a franchise-changing guy. And I know, and I said this before the season started, playing at Rutgers in that offense with Steve Peichel, the antiquated offense, 2 bigs on the block. It looks like an offense from the 90s. I didn't think he was going to have a sensational year. So I'm drafting Ace Bailey really off of what he did in high school, not what he did in college. Because what he did in college, there were better players in college.
Can I be honest with you for a second?
Yeah.
As a Duke fan, I thought Cam Reddish was going to be the next Paul George. Ace is starting to remind me of Cam Reddish, where he was one of the most hyped up guys coming out of high school. Incredible ceiling, was looked to be the one of the next big things. He fell a couple of picks in the draft. I believe he went either 5 or 6, maybe even a little later. And he's a nobody now. And that's what scares me about Ace. Usually when this many teams are passing on a guy or are a bit skeptical about a player, usually it means there's something wrong, right? Look at, I used the example the last time we were on. Look at Shedeur Sanders. This guy was projected to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft, and he fell all the way to the 5th or 6th round. That doesn't happen because of little details. That happens because you simply
Can I push
have
back
issues
on
with
that
player.
a little bit? Your guy, your starting quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, fell from 1 to 20 something on draft night, or from 2 to 20 something. Like
Aaron Rodgers, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's had character concerns his whole entire career.
Was Aaron Rodgers a good NFL quarterback?
Of course,
He's one of the best ever. Okay,
of course he was. But look at other guys, right? Like look at for example guys like Daniel Jones, right? You don't take him that high, and so many teams were not high on him, but somebody took a chance on him and it didn't work out, right?
That was like a team.
I'm not saying Daniel Jones had a hype as Ace, but you don't take players that teams aren't very high on. There's a reason that many teams aren't, and I see the comment that says teams that are passing on him are trying to win now. Charlotte's not trying to win now. They just don't have a need for him because of Brandon Miller, right? If a player is passable in a draft that is this stacked, usually it means there's a problem. That's how I'm seeing it.
To me, you need. Go ahead, Pete. Go ahead.
Like I talk to guys like Ben Pfeiffer, was a coach for Puma and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He has his own like Twitter and YouTube. He writes for a couple websites, including Switch Theory. He goes, this guy is one of the best shot makers he's seen in years. And there's a lot of people that say that. So you have to take the good with the bad. Like, yes, does he have some flaws in the game? Sure, but I still think that we can't put those negatives and put it on his back and forget why he was rated so high to begin with, right?
I 100% agree that Ace is. I said it all along. Out of all the teams in the top 8, Ace makes most sense in Brooklyn and in Utah, simply because they're both rebuilding teams that can focus on his development. I completely agree that he's talented and he has the upside of a superstar, but the problem is, again, is when you're this far in the draft from 3, you can't just trade away pennies to move up to 3. You have to give up a haul. And why are we looking to do that with a team like Philly, who's on the brink of implosion? And another reason why is you have one of their picks in 2027 that they're going to want back, right? I don't see a reason as to why you should go out and get him if they're not even looking to probably take Ace at 3.
Can I address that?
Fall to 4, you can look to move up with Charlotte, which Charlotte is definitely open for business from what I've heard. If Ace falls to 4 and VJ is off the board, they want Edgecombe or Malawak. Right? They're not looking at Ace. So if Ace drops to 4, that's an easier opportunity to move up. I wouldn't move up to 3.
Let me address that. Right? All right. If I can get Ace Bailey, I know that I can trade for 3 because we've talked about this before. Dylan. Ace Bailey to Philly in this time span doesn't really make any sense because I like Ace Bailey more than most people. I don't think he's going to be good, a quality NBA player for quite some time. But I'm okay with that because I think the Nets are in hell, and it's like I need a franchise-changing player.
Yeah, you need somebody that has the ceiling of a superstar. I agree, but I think I'm starting to see that more in some other play. Maybe not the superstar level, but the all-star level more consistent in terms of their ceiling and their floor than Aces is. And that's the thing. What do you prioritize? Do you want a guy who has a high upside to be a bust? Or do you want a guy, or do you want 2 or 3 guys who have high upsides to be fourth, third, second options in this
Here's
league?
my point. If like he gets credit for taking guys like Karis LeVert and Cam Thomas. And it's like if I get a bunch of guys like Karis LeVert and Cam Thomas, that does absolutely nothing for my franchise. I'm still awful. The only way I can get out of hell right now is to hit a home run. If I can keep 8, if I can go 3 and 8, I'll give you back your 2027 pick, right? If I can get hypothetically Bailey and Queen, or Bailey and Carter Bryant, or Bailey and Knepple, I've now got something. I'm not going to be good next year. I understand that. But I now have something to build on. I have some pieces in place. If I just walk away with Carter Bryant at 8, I got a 3 and D guy who's a good athlete. Like what does that
I
do
completely
for me?
agree that if Sean Marks doesn't move up in the draft for a second lottery pick, then it's a failure. I completely agree. It was a failure after the lottery night. Now you have to make up for the poor lottery night by being aggressive. The only way that I'm even open to moving up to 3 is if you keep 8. That's the only way possible that I'm even interested in. I'll give back the Philly pick in 27. I'll give up 19. I'll give you Cam Johnson shit. I'll even give you Nick Claxton. I'll package them both to move up to 3 if it means not giving up 8.
100%.
Because I think 3 and 8 is more valuable than just 3. Same thing with having potentially 8, 10, and 14 or 8, 10, and 15. Like that's more valuable than 3.
2
100%.
points I want to make. 2 points I want to make. That Philly pick actually has protections on it.
Yeah, it's top 8 protected.
Next year, if it does not go to OKC next year, then our first rounder turns into, I think, like 2 second rounders or 1 second rounder. That's one thing.
Yeah, so it doesn't
And
hold much
2,
value.
Yeah. 2, what if we're not going for Ace Bailey? What if the best deal or the easiest deal is working with Philly? The other teams want a lot more, and Philly wants to get their pick back, and they want to get off Paul George's contract. For example, I think I make the move. If that's the easiest deal to move up, I get to 3, and then I could work around 3. If I could even trade back from 3 if I don't want to take a certain player too early. I just think you make the best deal at the right time.
See, again, I got to just push back a little bit on it, just because if you're moving up to 3, I don't think there's a deal that's considerably good for you. I think you're going to have to give up a haul regardless, right? That if that means the Philly pick, if that means Cam
I'm
Johnson,
saying the best deal.
I think
I'm saying the other deals are worse. That's the best deal.
I think the best deal is going to come from Charlotte, because if VJ's off the board at 3, they don't want Ace. I think it's too high to draft Kaman and Knepple, right? They can move back. They have picks in this year's draft already. I don't think they're going to be searching for more picks this year. If you gave up 8 and a future first or 2 future firsts, some with protections, whatever it may be, to move up, that I'm a bit more interested in. Because if you're exerting all of your assets by trading Cam Johnson, that Philly pick, maybe 8, to move up to 3, you've now just wasted the large majority of your assets that you had to move up for a second lottery pick. And that's what scares me. And Philly historically is not a good trade partner with us. Daryl Morey is not a good trade partner with us. He's not been a good trade partner for many people. Do we not remember the last time we made a deal with Daryl Morey? We got all-star player who no longer was an all-star player with back injuries at the age of 25. It's not. I don't see where it's worth it if you're giving up too many assets.
Let me put this out there. Let me ask this question. We're assuming it's Ace Bailey. Like Dylan said, a lot of people have come off of Ace Bailey. Are we sure if the Nets move up? There'd be 3 guys I would look at. VJ, Ace, and Fears. If I was picking 3, I would take Ace. But you guys know I love Fears too. Is it possible the Nets would trade up to 3 and not be thinking Bailey would be looking at one of the other 2 guys?
I think with all of the rumors that are coming out now, what makes us think Fears isn't falling to 8? Like, if New Orleans is serious about moving up to 3,
caliber, I can't see it. Because he's super.
Think of it this way, right? And I've been saying this for a while. Utah does not need a point guard. They have Keontae George. They have Isaiah Collier. There's really no need for them to get a point guard. They're a team that needs a wing or that needs a 2 guard. Trey Johnson makes a lot of sense for Utah. Washington, they're a team very high on Malawak, and they want to build up that dual threat big man lineup. What makes us think they're going Fears at 6, right? Charlotte does not need a point guard. They're not going Fears. They need a 2 guard or a center, right? That's VJ, Trey Johnson, Malawak, whatever it may be. Knappel, if they decide to move back. And then New Orleans, like I said, if they move up, if Philly moves back to 7, what makes us think Philly's taking Fears at 7? You know, I don't see a route where Fears gets taken before 8. Just because
you take the best talent available. It's not about
for
position.
certain teams, yes. For certain teams, yes. But New Orleans is not a horrible team. They should not have been a bottom 5 team in basketball this year. We all know that. Trey Murphy is a borderline all-star. They're keeping Zion. He is an all-star when healthy. They still have CJ McCollum on the books. They still have DeJounte Murray coming back. That's still a play-in playoff team, right? They don't need a guy like
They can compete against like OKC.
No, they definitely can't compete against OKC, but they also have Milwaukee's future right in the palm of their hands, and it's coming right up. They have these pick swaps and unprotected picks for Milwaukee that are going to start next year, right? And who's to say that Giannis is there after this year? He'll probably stay this year, and that pick may not be as valuable this year, but after that, you have their entire future in the palm of their hands, right? Washington has a bunch of picks from Phoenix. They don't really necessarily need to go best available. They have a young core of Carrington, Coulibaly, and Sarr.
I think those are
you're
swaps,
looking for the best fits for them. I'm sorry?
Aren't those like mostly swaps?
Most of them, yeah. But I mean, I think there's a world where Phoenix is worse than Washington in the next 2 years. I think Devin Booker's out the door in the next year and a half. So it really just depends on how they decide to build that team. But I don't see certain teams taking guys because of best available when this class is loaded with players who are incredibly talented at certain positions of need. And I said this yesterday on Breezy Show. You have teams who will draft best available. You have teams that will draft for fit and need. But there's also this thing in the middle called best available player of need, right? When you have a core of youth, specifically a team like Washington or Charlotte, you don't need to draft the best available player on the board. And 9 times out of 10, the best player available on the board isn't going to be the same player that's best available on the board for another team, whether it's right behind you or right ahead of you. So rankings and projections are just rankings and projections. What teams have on their big boards as their best available players in order aren't going to match every other team's. So, you know, a team like New Orleans could view Fears as like the second or third best player on the board. But if they want Ace and they have the ability to move up for him, they'll go get him. If they like Malawak more than Fears, they may go get him. You know, if they like Knappel more than Fears, they may go get him. It really, projections and rankings are just that. They're nothing more than projections and rankings.
Like if I ask this question, if I said who's better, Carter Bryant or Noah Assange, that's kind of like a whole debate, right? Like I don't even know how to examine that question. Like Carter Bryant is probably better today. Assange has way more upside, I would say.
I wouldn't even necessarily say Bryant's better than Asenge right now. I just think Asenge has the higher upside. Bryant has the higher floor, right? He still has the talent to be a third, fourth option in this league, but Asenge has that ability in terms of ceiling to maybe be a second option in this league. So it's like, it depends on, again, what you're looking for. Are you looking for more of a project and a guy that, you can mold into being a higher level player? Or do you want a guy that is going to be a almost guaranteed 3-and-D role player in this league who has the upside to be your third, fourth option?
I want to just BTB is putting it out. I want to get this right because I've heard 10 people say his name 10 different ways. Asenge. Is that what we're going?
Yes. Asenge.
We're going to make a decision today, and we're going to go with that. It's Asenge. That's what. If he becomes a net for the next 15 years, we're pronouncing his name however we decide today. It's Asenge. Is that his name?
Asenge. Yep.
Asenge. All right, Pete, are you cool with that?
Nah.
How are you saying it?
No, I'll just say whatever. I'll just try to copy whatever you guys say. I mess up everybody's name anyway.
Noah
I mess up names worse than anybody. Yeah. Asenge. All right, I'm gonna go with that. All right. I didn't want to move the conversation on to Fears. I don't think the Paul George Sixers trade is going to happen. I want to move the trade. I want to move the discussion to this. Well, let me ask you, Pete, and then we'll move on. Is it possible that the Nets are looking at someone other than Bailey if they were to make this trade?
Absolutely. I don't
If
think
so,
it
who?
means just because you trade up to 3, it could be anyone that they want. Like I was trying to say before, maybe they do the deal with Philly at 3 just because that is the best deal, right? Is it going to be the best deal? Probably not. But wherever they can move up, if they feel like that's a good deal, if they feel like it's the best deal, they might move up. And then maybe they move back. Maybe you just take the player that you want right there. You know, I know you're going to ask me later who I want them to draft. Do you want me to give you that now or later? I think we should
Hold
do
on,
Fears.
put that in your pocket for just a moment. I want to get to
Go
this.
ahead.
Dylan's been all
Go
over
for it.
this. Dylan is the draft dude, so I want to start with him. The kind of the topic of the show. Fears at 8. You're saying it's possible. Last week I saw a mock that had Fears at 5. Now I'm seeing him at 12. Is Fears at 8? That's who we want, and I'll let Pete answer the question next. But is Fears at 8 realistic?
I think it's
Dylan.
more realistic than not. Like I've said, I do think that this class is so loaded to a point where teams don't need to necessarily take like the best available talent, right? Philly has interest in Edgecombe, Malawak, and Trey Johnson. Probably more so Edgecombe and Malawak than they do Ace. Why stay at 3? They can definitely move back. And with reports showing that New Orleans is interested in Ace, it makes a ton of sense for them to move 4 spots back. You know, if they can gain a Milwaukee pick out of that deal where they get 7 and a Milwaukee pick for 3, why not take it? Because Philly already owns a couple of picks from the Clippers, who is a team that's getting older, that's going to be in a rebuild at some point in the near future. You know, adding up on some valuable picks for when that time comes to either move on from Embiid and George to rebuild around Maxey, you know, McCain, whoever they take at 7. Like there's an avenue where that makes much more sense than Brooklyn moving up. And again, if Philly moves back to 7, you're thinking they're going one of either Trey Johnson or Malawak, which is one of those players is a guy that's of interest for Brooklyn. So it makes sense for them to move back a pick before Brooklyn. It also makes more sense for New Orleans to move up rather than Brooklyn. But I totally see if Fears can get past 5, then I'd 1000% see him getting to 8. That's just how I see it.
So let me get to Pete. Pete, me and Dylan are all on the Jeremiah Fears bandwagon. I look at, to me, a potential all-star caliber point guard. He's like the 4th all-star player in this draft to me after the first 3. If we got him at 8, I would feel like that's a home run. How do you evaluate Fears, and who do you, assuming we can't get one of the big 3, we can't trade into the top 3, who would you want in the draft, if not Fears?
I love Fears. There's a lot of people online
Awesome.
that are just like shitting on him lately. I'm not sure why. The Ringer dropped him all the way down to 19 in their big board. I don't see it. I think he's going to be in the top 10. I was saying before this started, I think it's a lock. He's in the top 12. I would be completely shocked if he made it past 8. I think there's a chance that we could draft him. I would be in a situation if we get to 8 and Jeremiah Fears is there and Derek Queen is there. Derek Queen is my guy. This guy just oozes out DeMarcus Cousins. This guy could run the offense like Sabonis does in Sacramento. This guy was made to run Jordy's offense. Take it out of the elbow. He could take it to the rack. He could pass. I was talking with a scout, and he told me this crazy stat. He counted all of his passes from every game. This guy passed with his offhand more than any player in college basketball. This guy
I was just going to add that. He can pass with both hands. Yeah.
That is so unique. More than any point guard, more than any guard, whatever you want to say. This guy, Derek Queen, in the right situation, could really be a special player. That's my guy right now because I want the Nets to go for the home run. We got a lot of picks. Let's go for it.
So we're all on board with Fears, which means almost certainly one thing. It's not going to be Jeremiah Fears. But, I mean, I'm glad that Pete's just as much on board with Fears as I am. Pete, let me ask you this question. Trey Johnson, what are your thoughts on him?
Man, it's so tough because I know he's a great shot maker, and you're probably getting at least like a Jamal Crawford type if he could just develop even just a little bit more. but I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan, and I'm going to look stupid years down the line. But I think I'm putting in a bias of who I want the Nets to get, and if this guy's good. So I'm a little biased towards Trey Johnson, admittedly.
No, me and
I'm
Dylan
very
are
much so biased again. Yeah,
Yeah, me and
I've put out like 5 or 6 players that I would not touch with a 10-foot pole, no matter where we are drafting. One of them, Trey Johnson. Another, Kasparis Yakichonis. I'm not a fan of Colin Murray Boyles in terms of just fit on this team. There's a couple of guys that I would not touch. Pause, but you get what I'm saying. But yeah, I like Derek Queen a lot. I just don't know if he's 8th overall worthy. The offensive upside on him is incredible. He's by far the most talented offensive big in this draft. It's the defense that worries me a bit. And I think there's a very similar player a couple of spots down the road in Thomas Sorber, who is very similar to Queen to Derek Queen, who, though may not be as flashy and polished offensively, similar stats in college. They were both around that 14 to 16 points per game. I want to say Sorber out rebounded him. The playmaking numbers are very similar as well. It's just the defensive upside of Sorber that I love much more than Queen. I see Sorber as a two-way guy in this league. He may not be like a first, second, third option, but maybe a third, maybe a fourth as a starting big man in this league. I can see him being that. So I don't know. It depends on what you value at that position. I think we've seen in Brooklyn over the past couple of years way too many one-dimensional players. And in this class, there's a lot of two-way players that you can grab, and that's more so what I'm looking at.
Let me ask you this question. Let me pose this. I saw a hypothetical trade. It was Cam Johnson at 27 to Orlando for Isaac in 16. Jonathan Isaac in 16. I kind of like that trade. If we did make that trade, Isaac, I think, is the most versatile defensive player in the league. I think Jonathan Isaac is insanely underrated. If we made that trade, would you be more open to drafting Queen because Isaac could kind of hide Queen's defensive liability? I agree with you. Queen is a defensive liability in the NBA. If you got a guy like Isaac, a big that can guard all 2, 3, 4, 5, would you be more open to drafting Queen because of his offensive upside? You got a guy like Isaac who could hide his defensive flaws.
No. Just because Isaac plays, 20, 30 games a year? He's not a starting caliber player in this league anymore because of those injuries.
I don't agree. He's on the wrong team to start on. I think there are a lot of playoff teams Jonathan Isaac could start for.
I don't see it just because of the injury history. He can't stay healthy. I love Jonathan Isaac. I wanted to see him do well forever, but he's how many years in the league now? 7, 8? He's been
in the league since 17, 18, I want to say.
Yeah, he's not a healthy player. And to me, to put my faith into somebody who can't stay healthy to get rid of a liability issue, just that doesn't really make sense to me. I'm not putting my trust in somebody that can't stay on the floor to then help a guy that we're drafting because of some inefficiencies to his game. So to me, I think I put out my big board not too long ago, but if I just had to rough estimate what my top 10 would be in order, I'm taking Fears first. If he's not available, I'm taking Malawak. If he's not available, I'm taking Carter Bryant. If he's not available, I'm taking Asenge. Keep going down the list. I like Yegor Demin. I like Konkanepil. Then I would go probably Queen.
Hang on, put that in your pocket. I want to get that because I want to make that like kind of the lead segment. I want to get to you ranking those guys in just a minute. But first, I want to pose this question to both of y'all. If Fears, if we feel that we can't get Fears at 8, trade down to 5 or 6. I mean, trade up to 5 or 6. What would it take to get Fears? And if we don't feel that we can get him at 8, which you're saying we can, how far would we have to trade up to get him? 5, 6?
I don't think Utah and Washington make sense as trade partners because they each have 3 and 4 first, not first, but just picks in this draft in general. They don't need more picks in this draft. So if they're looking for future draft capital, then it makes sense. But it necessarily doesn't make sense if you're just looking to move your late firsts and that 8th pick to move up, right? I think Charlotte is the team that makes the most sense to trade with in the top 8 if you're Brooklyn. They have 2 early second-round picks, and they have their top 8 pick. That's it. They're not a team loaded with future draft capital in terms of first-round picks. So, if you give up 8 and a future first, I think that gets it done. And I think that's a deal that makes a ton of sense. I wouldn't mind taking Fears at 4. I think he's that good of a player to where he should be selected in the top 5. But if that's your guy and you have any form of doubt that he'll be available at 8, then I would go all the way up to 4 to get him.
To me, I'm fine with it, but to me, you're going to have to give up a lot. I mean, 8 to 4, that's quite a jump, right? And yeah, I'm looking at 5, 6, and 7. That's Utah, Washington, New Orleans. I had my eye on Washington. Can we get him at 6?
Washington's
4
definitely a team that could look at Fears because there's already rumors about Jordan Poole's future there. But again, they have Carrington who can play the combo guard. He can play the 2, but he's much better as a 1. He's a very good playmaker and guy that can score from all 3 levels of the floor. But it really depends on how teams are looking at this draft. I view it as I don't necessarily need to draft the best available player because I don't think the best available player on the board is going to be the best available player for the team behind us or the team ahead of us. I think these lists and these big boards are going to be very, very different from one another. There's people speculating that Con Kneppel could go 2 to San Antonio. If Dylan Harper is at 3 and that happens, then hell yeah, you move up to 3 and you give up the haul for it. I just don't see that haul being worthy of
I'd give up the entire I'd give up everything for Harper. I don't care what it is. Like, I'll get Harper and then I'll figure everything else out. Yeah. I do want to move the question. I'm glad you're high on Fears too. I love Fears. How far do you think you'd have to trade up to get him? And what would you be willing to give up to get Fears?
Asking
me?
Yeah. Oh, I'm Pete. Yeah, no, I'm asking Pete. Sorry.
Man, it's so tough for everything we just talked about. We don't know which teams like which guy. There's going to be guys falling. There's going to be guys rising. If hypothetically in this situation, you say, you know what, we're hearing intel, he's not going to make it past, I'm just making this up, 5. I know you don't want to make the deal with the Jazz. I get it. But I would move up to 5. I would move up to 4 even. I really would. If I really like this player, if our scouts say this is our guy, then I'm willing to take a risk. I don't know what that means.
What are you willing to give up?
Every person.
How many picks? How many picks are you willing to give up to get to 4? Because you're gonna 8 to 4. That's a healthy jump right there. What do you? Go ahead.
Okay, so this is how I'm going to think about it. I'm going to say the Utah Jazz have selected Jeremiah Fears. Okay, they don't want him. They know that we want him. What would I give up for Jeremiah Fears straight up? That's how I'm going to look at it. If I'm just worrying about getting Fears, I would throw 8 in. But if I want to get that second lottery pick, and that's what's most important to me, to add with Fears, that changes the ball game, right? Because it's a big difference if 8 is included or not. Let's say 8 is not included, just for fun. I would give up CJ, 19, 27, and I would give up a first next year. If I'm really that in love with the guy, and I'm not giving up 8, it's going to be painful.
It's gonna be a healthy price to get from 4 to 8, and that's what I'm from 8 to 4, and that's what I'm kind of saying. Is it going to be worth it? Because to me, if you're getting Harper, it's definitely worth it. Is Fears worth the price? Is the juice worth the squeeze there to get to 4? You're going to give up a lot of your future, a lot of draft capital to get it. Is it
I'm
worth
giving up 3 first rounders and CJ basically. Would I do that for Fears? That I guess that would be the question. So we have Fears 8 and also, but basically 3 first rounders and CJ. That's a heavy price to pay. I would do it if my scouts believe in him. And just for me, I like him a lot. I would consider making that deal. I don't know if you're going to put protections on anything. That's something that could be talked about with the later picks. But I'm all in. If our scouts like him, be aggressive. I don't care. And then we get to pick 8 also. Wow, that's a building block. 2 guys.
I can't see a world where you get to keep 8 and trade up to 4. But let me bring Dylan in. Dylan, would you be willing to give up that much because you kind of suggest that you could probably get 8-4 a little cheaper. How much would you be willing to get up? Like what's like where's the line for you? Like that's too much, and the price is too much.
I think what the price tag for?
Yeah, well,
for
I'll say
Fears at
like
4?
that's too many picks. That's too many. That's too much draft capital to go to 8 from 8-4. Like where would you draw the line?
I think the 8th overall pick, a future first, and a heavily protected second first. I think that's a very realistic offer that isn't too much but isn't too little. I think it matches both the needs for each team.
You're gonna have to
So
give up
that's
more than that. That's
I don't
light.
I don't
That's
necessarily
light.
think so, because I mean, if you're talking Charlotte, what more do they don't need a player on our team. They could use Claxton, which I have proposed. I think that Claxton makes a ton of sense to them if you grab Grant Williams and a salary filler in there as well. You know, if you gave up 8 and Nick Claxton for 4,
It's not talking about like it's not talking about what they need. It's more about they just want to like break us down and take as much as they can.
oh yeah, no, the most I would do is 8, a first, and a heavily protected second first. That's the most I would give up to move up to 4.
I would do that.
The only player that I'm breaking the bank for in this draft is Dylan Harper, because we know Flag isn't getting traded, or Dallas isn't trading, the first overall pick. So the only player in this draft that I would give up the world for is Harper. Other than that, I'll roll the dice and see who's available.
I want to get into this. Let's say Fears is drafted at 5 or 6, and we can't make a move to get up there. So Fears is gone, and so far we would have off the board for sure. We would have Flag, Cooper, Flag, Harper, VJ, and Fears. Those guys are definitely gone. I've seen mocks that have Bailey dropping like a stone, so I want to put him in there. Bailey, Fears is gone. Maluak, Queen, Bryant, Johnson, Knepel, Esengay. Esengay? Is that right? Esengay.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan, those are the guys that are available. I'm guessing you would take Bailey, one of those names I just given you. If not Bailey, who else would you take? Or would you take Bailey first? Of those names I've given you, rank
You're
them
talking
1,
if
2,
they
and
all
3.
fall to 8?
If those guys, yeah, if it's just hypothetically. And obviously not all of those guys are going to be available, but some of them are going to be available. Bailey, Maluak, Queen, Carter Bryant, Trey Johnson, Con Knepel. Kind of rank them 1, 2, 3. Who you would want?
Hate me for it, but I'm still taking Fears over Ace at this point in time.
Right, no, we're saying Fears is gone. So off the board
so
is
Fears is gone.
the
Okay,
top
so
two,
who are the players
Fears
available?
and VJ are definitely gone. Those 4 guys
Okay.
are definitely gone.
So what is that? Ace, Knepel, Carter Bryant, and what? Maluak?
Yeah, Ace, Maluak, Queen, Carter Bryant, Trey Johnson, who I know you're not going to rank, Con Knepel, and Noah Esengay would all be available.
All right, so I would probably say Ace, Maluak, Bryant, Esengay, Knepel, and then Johnson, or Queen and then Johnson.
You said Ace, Maluak, and Carter Bryant. Is what that was your order?
Yeah.
Pete?
Yo, you're breaking up on me. I'm gonna be right back.
All right. I want to get this. So we're putting Ace first. I think we all would agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're putting Maluak second, correct? I would also agree with that. And then you're taking Carter Bryant third. To me, Carter Bryant and Esengay is a tough one. I look at them. I love Esengay's height, his athleticism, his ability to finish out the. He's got a little mid-range game too. He's got a little turnaround. Like, to me, if he could just add a 3, Esengay could be an all-star caliber player. Carter Bryant, to me, can't ever be an all-star caliber player. He's an athletic. He could be a good player. He's an athletic 3 and D wing. Break that down. Esengay is flying up draft boards, and I think for good reasons after really checking him out. Why Carter Bryant over Esengay?
Why?
Yeah.
I just think that he is a more NBA-ready player. He's 6'8", 225 at the age of 19. He's got the body frame that not many players walk into the league with. And I just think at this point in time, his skill set is a bit easier to develop in this league than a guy like Esengay. Asenge has the length, the versatility, the upside, but Carter Bryant isn't a guy who doesn't have upside. He was ranked top 10, I believe, if not top 15 in his high school class. He was projected lottery, fell all the way outside the lottery, has made his way back into it. Like, this is a guy who does have the upside to be like an OG Anunoby like player. And if you can grab him with your second pick, if you move up in the lottery, I think that's a home run. I wouldn't take him necessarily with the first, especially if some of those guys that you mentioned are available. But if you can move back up for him, I 100% think that's the perfect fit.
I want to ask you a question. Ace Bailey is really starting to fall. It wasn't that long ago where Ace Bailey was the consensus number 2, and some people were having that conversation. Could he actually go number 1? Is Ace better than that? It was a year ago. And now we're talking about him free falling to 8, and that's I don't know how realistic that is. What is causing the free fall in Ace Bailey stock?
It's just the upside and the IQ. There's a lot of question marks about his IQ on both ends of the floor. He's very he gets lost very easily defensively. He's very stiff offensively. The shot selection's a bit of a worry. His attitude's a bit of a worry. So, there are a couple of teams who aren't really necessarily thrilled with the upside that he brings. And because of some of those deficiencies in his game, he could very well fall. I mean, I've been saying it for a couple of weeks. I think that he could fall all the way down to 5. There's people that have him falling potentially all the way down to 7. So, there's a world where he falls a bit further than many people think, and it's starting to come out. It's pretty obvious that Philly doesn't want him at 3. So what does that mean? Either a team's going to trade up for him, or he's going to fall. And again, if let's just say Philly doesn't end up taking VJ and they trade back and a team doesn't take Ace or VJ, then I don't think Charlotte takes him at 4. I still think they go VJ. That puts him at 5. Does Utah want him at 5? Do they trust Kneppel more? Like, there's a lot of question marks. Do they like Trey Johnson's upside and floor a bit more? There's a lot of question marks around Ace and how he'll turn out in this league. So it depends.
I want to bring up Nate's comment, and Nate said Steve Peichel, the head coach of Rutgers, makes Tom Tibbs look like D'Antoni type offensive genius. This was a concern to me. I did not think Ace was really going to shine, or they were really going to maximize him in that offense. It's a really basic, really slow offense, and they're playing the whole as run some floppy action for Ace. And it's just it's a really bad offense, and I get why Rutgers had to do it. They haven't had the best talent. If you look at their team, it was Ace, Harper, and like 5 dudes. It's not good. So they have to make do with what they have. But like once you get them out of there, the shot making ability, the length, the ability to move, the ability to handle the ball, that's still all there. There's a lot of this. People are low on Ace because of the offense that he played in, which I said before the season started it was going to be impossible to make Ace look good in that offense.
Yeah. I mean, okay. It wasn't smart picking from both of them to go to Rutgers, but it was cool to see a smaller market team in terms of college being able to get that type of player. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really showcase the full skill set or the full deficiencies to their game. You can blame Rutgers being a problem for the terms of why they didn't win certain games and why the shot selection was poor. But at the end of the day, we won't necessarily know that until he's on an NBA floor and developing under an NBA team. And because of that, it's giving a lot of question marks to other teams on whether or not they should select him at 3.
I want to bring Pete back in. Pete, you with us? Can you hear me okay? Does that sound all right?
Yeah, you good.
All right, cool. I wanted to bring this question to you. First, let's say hypothetically Ace Bailey drops, right? So off the board is Cooper, Harper, VJ, Fierce. Fierce is gone, and Ace is still available. If Ace fell at 8, you're taking Ace at 8. No questions asked, right? Like for sure?
No.
All right, go ahead. So here, I'm going to put the question to you. Here's who's hypothetically available, and just kind of rank these guys 1, 2, 3. Bailey, Maluak, Queen, Carter Bryant, Trey Johnson, Con Knipple, Asenge. Who rank them? What would be your top 3 choices there?
I'm going to start with Queen, Maluat, and then I forgot who a couple of the other guys were.
Bailey,
But
Maluak,
I might take Asenge.
Queen, Bryant, Johnson, Knepple, Asenge. So basically, I'll just pose the question like this. So VJ, Fears, and the top 2 guys are off the board. Who would be your next 3 options? Like rank them 1, 2, and 3.
Say that again. I'm sorry, you broke up.
Oh, sorry. So off the board for sure would be the top 2 guys, VJ Edgecombe and Fears. If all of those guys were off the board, power rank your next 3 guys.
Who's left?
Bailey, Maluak, Queen, Carter Bryant, Trey Johnson, Con Knipple, Noah Asenge.
Queen. I might repeat names or whatever, but I'm just gonna do this
Yeah.
quick so we can move on. Queen, Maluat, Knuppel, and Asenge that'd be my 4.
All right. You guys obviously part ways on Queen. Do you see Queen as a defensive liability, and why do you break it down for us? Why do you got Queen so high above these other guys?
It's all offensive playmaking. He's got the handles. He's got the playmaking, and especially for the Nets, this is especially high because of the point series offense that Jordy runs, which you've seen him run it with Ben Simmons. The big man gets the ball at the elbow, then he could either do a pass, a handoff, he could do a screen, or he could take it to the hoop. But Queen definitely has his flaws, right? Did not have the greatest combine, overweight. There was some, little talk about if, he's going to be really, really into basketball, if he's willing to lose the weight. And with the defense, probably his biggest issue is jumping. He gets no lift. It's pretty bad. Do I think he could get better over time? Maybe not with the lift, but I think he can get better defensively. But if he does hit his ceiling and you're looking at a DeMarcus Cousins, how many times did we look at DeMarcus Cousins and be like, oh, man, what a horrible day. DeMarcus Cousins put up 30 points, 10 assists, and, 8 rebounds or whatever. And we're talking about his defense. You know what I mean?
Look, DeMarcus Cousins was a hell of a talent. And look, if the Nets drafted the next DeMarcus Cousins, you'd be happy with that. But DeMarcus Cousins was a loser, though, right? Like, he never made a team better. He really did. I get it. And he was a great player, and he was one of the premier power forwards in basketball, right? But, like, what team did he make better?
Sacramento? Without
they
him,
were horrible every year.
Without him, Sacramento would be even worse.
Look, I get it, right? If we got DeMarcus Cousins, you're thrilled with that. But go ahead, Dylan. You highly disagree.
Before Dylan goes in, you got to understand it's the perfect fit for this offense, like perfect. And that's what I'm looking at.
What do you do with Claxton? You got to trade Claxton at that point, right?
So Claxton is the center, and you can put
Queen's the
Queen at
four?
power forward.
Who's guarding the bigs?
Claxton, that you do the same defense you did last year. Can you hide Queen? Maybe, maybe not. That's what it is. If you have a guy like a Cam Thomas, he's going to go off, but then he might get caught in the screen sometimes. You trade their offense for bad defense sometimes. It is what it is.
It's fair. Queen is a highly gifted offensive player. He can handle the ball. He can pass the ball. I get what you're saying offensively, but
keep in mind, Gary, I'm going for the home run swing here.
I'm with you. I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I'm 100% in on swinging for the fences. If you strike out, Babe Ruth has my favorite quote. Kobe used to quote him all the time. He goes, "I swing big, I miss big. So what?" Right? I'm for it. Draft the best player available. The Nets are in hell. If the Nets were close, I would say maybe make a smart decision here. I would say swing for the player with the highest upside to get us out of hell. Let me bring this back to Dylan.
But listen, let me say one last thing, Gary. Let me say one last thing. If it is Fears and Queen, I want to say Queen, but I would probably go with Fears because I think Fears is the safer pick out of those two, just to keep this in mind.
And you would say you think the upside of Queen offensively is like Cousins. I mean, you think he could be that good of an offensive player?
Yeah, I'm looking at Sabonis. I'm looking at Sengun. I'm looking at those guys, and that's the mirror image that I see for Queen.
I'm gonna
not
pass
the
the ball
greatest
back.
defensively, but great on offense and great passers. Sorry to cut you off.
And I just want to pass the rock to Dylan here. And Dylan, you rate him a lot lower than Pete does. Your thoughts on putting him with Claxton and him being that impactful of an offensive player? What are your thoughts?
Who are we putting next to Claxton?
Queen.
I don't think Claxton's on the team, so I don't think it matters. Just in all honesty, I just don't see him being on this team next year.
He's on the team right now. Kind of his assessment where Queen is Sengun. He's DeMarcus Cousins. You rank him a lot lower. You rate him a lot lower than Pete does. What do you think of him as a purely offensive player? And does his pure offensive ability kind of outweigh his defensive liability, in your opinion?
I don't think anybody's offensive ability outweighs a defensive ability, because in this league,
how about Luka?
He can't win a finals. He couldn't drag LeBron into the Lakers past the first round. I love Luka, but he can't do these things on his own. You know? So yeah, I think it's very impactful. And like think about it. Luka's probably a better basketball player than Jason Tatum is. But Jason Tatum, who I can't stand, is ranked higher, has more of a chance to be an MVP in this league. Why? Because he wins and because he plays both sides of the floor. And he does both at an elite level. If you want to be a superstar in this league, you need to play both ends of the floor. And if not, you need to carry your team on that one side of the floor. Luka has not been able to win a finals. The only player similar in terms of how gifted they are offensively and how poor they are defensively, I would say, is Steph Curry. But Steph Curry has championships. He's been able to bring his teams to championships as the number one option and win them. Luka's been to one, he lost, and he got knocked in the first round this year with LeBron. I can't say that that's more valuable than Jason Tatum. Let me looking at the debate in the sense of, do you grab the fully gifted offensive player with defensive liability issues, or do you grab a two-way player? I'm going to side with the two-way player every single time.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, right? Because I think Dallas put together an otherwise good defensive team besides Luka. But to be fair, the backcourt he played with when they went to the Western Conference Finals was Jalen Brunson, who can't guard anybody. And when they got to the finals, in the backcourt, he had Kyrie Irving, who can't guard anybody.
Kyrie's a bit better defensively than some people think. I'm being honest. Like, we can all hate him because of how he left in Brooklyn, and I certainly have my hatred for him, but he's not a horrible defender.
I agree.
Kyrie Irving's not a horrible defender?
There have been many instances where he has showcased a actually very good and well above average post defense for a player of his size and at his position. His perimeter defense, he gets past screens pretty easily. He can stay with his man. He's very solid in the steal per game department. It's not like he's a stick out there.
So is Steph Curry, though. But so is Steph Curry and Allen Iverson. Like, filling passing.
Well, AI played with a bit more intensity. It was his size that kind of killed him. Steph, throughout the first, I'd say, half of his career, was a major defensive liability issue. He did nothing. You know? Right.
But then he got a bunch of steals. He got a bunch of steals. Steph led the NBA in steals a couple of times.
I'm not talking about simple steals as of like, oh, you pick off a guy who throws a bad throw. I'm talking more like on-ball defensive, you know, your defensive presence is causing a player to mishandle the ball. That's what I'm talking about. And Kyrie has shown numerous instances of him being able to do that. So I wouldn't say Kyrie is like the worst defender in the world. I would say he's maybe slightly below average for an NBA player, but I would say he's slightly above average for a guard in this league, especially at his size.
If Kyrie Irving is guarding Jaylen Brown, if he's guarding Jalen Brunson, they're going for 40. Like, there's not a question about it. I'm not.
Oh yeah, no, the Brunson backcourt was horrible, but they were also young at that point. I'm not putting that on Luka at that point.
I'm just saying, though, if I got a one-on-one and I got Brunson on Kyrie Irving, I love that matchup. If I'm the Knicks, you know what I'm saying? If I have one-on-ones with Kyrie Irving, I'm going to matchup hunt for Kyrie Irving.
Oh, I think Kyrie showcased that he can defend whenever he plays against Steph. I mean, if you look back at their rivalry,
that's fair.
Right? Kyrie was.
It's been a while, but yeah.
Yeah, Kyrie was playing defense on Steph. Steph was not playing defense on Kyrie. They stuck Clay on him. That I think showcases how much of a difference in terms of the level of defense that both of them have. So to me, I think Kyrie's an above average defender for his height and his position.
For his height and his position. For his height, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay.
At the point guard position at 6'2", I think he's an above average defender. Now, if you're talking about in terms of just an NBA defender, yeah, he's slightly below average. But again, he's also 6'2" and a point guard. Most of the time, those guys aren't really playing defense. But if you look at his defensive tangibles compared to guys like Steph, like Luka, like Brunson, he is a much better defender by far.
And that's the other question. Is he a point guard? I know he's the size of a point guard, but he's a 2-guard on LA.
He's a point guard.
I mean, he's 2-guard on Dallas.
He's a
2-guard on Dallas. He was 2-guard with the Nets. He was 2-guard with the Celtics, and he was a 2-guard. LeBron's the point guard. Can we agree that LeBron's the point guard?
LeBron's a point forward. Yes, he defined the point forward position for what it is now. But at the end of the day, Kyrie is not a guy that gives you less than 5 assists per game. If you look at his time in Brooklyn, he was giving you 5+ assists per game. That's a point guard. He's still doing point guard needs.
He's doing point guard things for sure, but Harden was the point guard. Marcus Smart was the point guard.
Once he got there, yes.
Right. Marcus Smart was the point guard. LeBron James was the point guard. Luka is the point guard.
Marcus Smart wasn't the point guard.
He certainly was. You saying Marcus Smart was the 2-guard? Marcus Smart was the point guard.
No, Marcus Smart was the 2-guard over there. Kyrie was always bringing the ball up. He was always setting up the offense.
He was bringing up the ball in late game situations, right? But it was Marcus Smart that was handling the ball for 3.5 quarters. It was.
I don't think so. Based on what I had watched, and I was a Kyrie guy.
Going back years ago,
watching where he was going. I think Kyrie was the one 80-90% of the time bringing the ball up and facilitating the offense. I think he actually had his best playmaking season in Boston, if I'm not mistaken, assists per game wise.
I remember going back to that Milwaukee series. I guess it was that 2019, 18-19 season? Yeah.
No, that was 17-18.
17-18. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm going back a while
here. Because they got here after the 18-19 season. So they got here in 19 in Brooklyn. So I want to say it was the 17-18 season.
Whatever year they lost to Milwaukee in 6.
Yeah. It was either 17-18 or 18-19. Yeah.
I remember watching that series and saying, okay, Kyrie's playing off the ball. And when Marcus Smart's running the point, the ball moves around. When Kyrie is running the point, the ball stops and Kyrie gets into a dribble package. Like Boston is better when they're playing Kyrie off the ball. I remember specifically seeing that and watching that in that series. But I mean, again, this is 6, 7 years ago. Maybe I could be misremembering 100%. I totally lost where I was going with that. But let me, and I want to bring Pete back in. Queen, can Queen be a dynamic offensive player? Do you at least agree with Pete that there's tremendous upside?
100%. I think Queen's the most gifted offensive big man that I've seen come in the draft in a very long time. I don't deny that. I think that he like he said, he has that DeMarcus Cousins Sengun-like offensive ability. I haven't seen a big that can put the ball on the floor the way that Queen can, right? He play makes tremendously out of the post. His offensive rebounding tangibles are very solid. He's a good player. It's just, would I select him at 8? No. If you miss out on Malawak and you don't think Sorber is going to be available, by your next pick, okay. Then if you want to trade up for him, between that 11 through 13 range, for sure, go for it. But I just don't see him. I don't see him falling past Chicago at 12. And I could see a team as early as maybe Toronto taking him at 9. So it really just depends on if he's available or not. And if he's not, which I'm kind of basing my mock drafts and big boards on, then that's when you look into Sorber. That's kind of how I see it. I think this is a 3 big man draft in terms of highest upsides, and that's Malawak, Queen, Sorber. I think Sorber actually has slightly more upside than Queen simply because of the two-way ability that he has, but Queen by far has the highest upside as an offensive player in the big man position in this draft.
So you guys agree on the offensive upside? I think we all agree on the offensive upside of Queen.
And that's what I was trying to mention before is though I really like Queen's game offensively, we've seen too many times in Brooklyn that they select guys who are one-sided, one-dimensional players. Cam Thomas, a one-sided, one-dimensional player who can't get over the hump to become an actual star. They brought in D'Angelo Russell, a one-sided player back in 2017, during that year, one-sided player. They had a solid year, but couldn't make it far. And now look at him. They do this very frequently. Joe Harris, when they brought him in through trade, one-sided player, not a great defender, could not see the back door of a barn, come playoff time in terms of shooting. Like there's really Day'Ron Sharpe. He's been very
Dylan,
limited.
how many two-way players are actually in like the top 30? How many are
of this year's draft?
Of this year's draft?
Carter Bryant, Noah Sengue, Maluak.
I got you. Flag.
Besides
Harper.
the first two, you can
Flag,
say the first
Harper,
two.
Edgecombe, Maluak, Carter Bryant.
Maluak needs so much work on offense.
He definitely needs work, but he has the tangibles to be a two-way player. That's what I'm saying.
He has the potential to be two-way. Okay.
All right. So if you want definite players that I see as two-way guys off the bat, I would say Flag, Harper, Edgecombe, Kneppel. I think Carter Bryant. So that's 5. I think Sorber 6. Jace Richardson is a guy that is considerably a two-way guard. I would say him. Cedric Coward. Rasheer Fleming, Will Riley, and that's about it. So yeah, you have like 8 or 9 guys who are considerably two-way guys off the bat. I mean, and that's the thing, right? Is usually a two-way player starts off as a 3-and-D player. Let's not forget that. So they develop into that two-way player, but it's the guys who have that 3-and-D ability who have the potential to turn into two-way players. Because without floor spacing and without defense, how are you going to become a two-way player? So to me, I can see like 8 to 10 guys in the top 30 who have that two-way ability to their game, 2 of which are centers to me.
I think you're giving a lot of guys a lot of extra hype.
I don't know. I've watched like 10 to 15 hours on each of these guys in terms of like the top 40. It's been a disgusting past couple of 8 months, to be very honest with all of you. But no, I've studied this class tremendously. I'd like to think I know what I'm talking about. Of course, it doesn't matter how much you look into it. You're gonna miss out on a couple of guys in terms of how you projected them. But just based off of high school, college tapes, the way that they played, the way that they currently play, those are the guys that I see as two-way players.
So why aren't all these two-way players all in the top 15?
Well, because some of them are project players. Some of them are, guys who are far out from being anything special. Like Will Riley, for example, he may not necessarily be a two-way player, but he's a 3-and-D guy. And like I said, I think the baseline to a two-way player in this league, you have to start off as a 3-and-D guy. Will Riley can space the floor and he can defend very well. He's 6'8" and versatile. You have, who else did I mention over here in a later round? Cedric Coward. He's a senior. He's already NBA ready to go. He'll be a guaranteed 3-and-D guy, role player. But does he have that two-way, when I say two-way, I'm not specifically mentioning star either. I'm just talking about a guy that can play both ends of the floor at a high caliber. That could be an elite role player, right?
That's fair.
Cedric Coward to me is going to be an elite role player as a two-way guy. Jace Richardson has that potential to be like a 3rd, 4th option two-way guard. Nolan Traore is another guy that I could see being a two-way guy. They were comping him to Lonzo Ball not too long ago. So, like I said, I think there's 10 guys in this draft out of the top 30 so far who have that two-way ability, most of which will start off as 3-and-D, but I think that there are a few of them that could hit that two-way, whether it be star or role player.
Potential to be two-way players.
100%. If you want guys that are guaranteed two-way guys right off the bat, I would say it's Flag, Harper, Edgecombe, like Nick Clifford as well. I mean, again, it just depends on what you're defining as a two-way. Do you consider a two-way being a guaranteed star?
I was thinking as high talent, but then you described, he could be a two-way player, but he's a role player, and then that made more sense to me.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you: Is Mikal Bridges a two-way player?
Yeah.
I would agree, right? Like he's not a great two-way player, but he plays
the role of a two-way player as a role player version, right? And I think that's the problem too, is people define things too. Not the way people should be defining things is more loosely than what people do, right? Like I said, you could be a two-way player in this league, but you could also just be a role player, right? You could be a two-way star in this league. It doesn't really. I see everything as like you can be a 3-and-D role player. You can be, an offensive juggernaut as a star, but you can also be an offensive juggernaut as a mid-level player. Cough, cough, Cam Thomas. We all love him, but he's not a star yet. So as of right now, he's just an offensive juggernaut role player or, high upside player, whatever you want to define him as. But I think that this is by far the most talented class we've seen in a very long time. And I also think next year's class, because of the guys who went back to college and also the guys who are coming into college, I think next year's class is even more talented.
The last it's a two-part question. Is there anyone else that you would, on this list, besides Fears, that you, so take away the top three guys in Fears. So Ace, Harper, Flag, and Fears. Outside of those guys, is there anyone else on this list that you would aggressively trade up for, Pete?
Say that again. I'm sorry, you broke up.
Oh, sorry. Besides Bailey, besides Cooper, Harper, Ace Bailey, Jeremiah Fears, besides those top four, is there anyone else in this draft that you would aggressively trade up for? You would try to get in the top 5 or 6 picks for?
I would trade up for Queen. I'm that much of a believer in him.
I know you disagree with that, Dylan. Is there anyone else besides Fears or the top 3 that you would aggressively trade up for?
I mean, if you're just talking about anywhere in the draft, yeah, I would aggressively trade up for a guy like
in the top 6.
No.
Trade up. Yeah, like after 8. Like
the only way that I'm even okay with taking Edgecombe is if you're trading Cam Thomas. That's really it. I know trade and Cam Thomas in the same sentence, some people may blow up, but that's how I see it. I don't like taking a Trey Johnson or an Edgecombe if Cam Thomas is on this team. It ruins the development of both of them.
They'd have to hold on to him until January, though, because
I know. Well, I mean, he's restricted free agent, so if he signs a contract as like a sign and trade, can they do that? I'm pretty sure you can sign and trade a restricted free agent. No.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they could do that. I think actually, I'm not sure.
Because how else would Kuminga get traded? And he's been mentioned as a trade guy,
Because I think that he has to reject the qualifying offer. I guess if you don't give him the qualifying offer and then you do a sign and trade, I think that works.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm not 100% sure. I feel like my brain's a little foggy.
Restricted free agency is very complicated. It's not fun. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't think they're trading Cam Thomas. I think they'll bring him back, and that means for me, I don't think they're going for guys like Edgecombe or Trey Johnson. So, outside of Harper, Ace, and Fears, there's nobody else that I would trade up for.
So let me. Who do you guys, assuming the Nets stick and pick at 8? And I'm so glad no one said Con Kneppel or Trey Johnson. I'm so happy that no one said either of those names. I'm so happy. Those are the 2 guys that I would really ruin my draft day. Who do you guys think it's going to be at 8? Pete, assuming the Nets stick and pick at 8, who are they going to draft? Not who do you want? Who's Sean Marks going to take?
Oh, you already know who they're going to take. They're going to take the god Con Kneppel.
I agree. I am so agree. I'm just
letting you guys know. I'm letting you guys know live. If Fears is available or Malluak is available at 8 and they take Kneppel, I am going to actually go off. Like, I'm going to get banned from Twitter. I am going to get banned from that platform, and that is now considerably a free speech platform. So if I get banned on there, some shit's going on. But I promise you, if they take Kneppel over those 2 guys, I'll freak the fuck out. Pardon the language.
I heard from someone that they like Demon. I would not be surprised if they took Demon at 8.
I think Demon's the trade-up target that they're looking for as a like how I'm seeing it is with the guys that they've brought in so far. Fears is by far the guy that they want, but say he's off the board, then I see them going Malluak or Bryant at 8, and then trading up to like say 10 or 13 and grabbing one of Demon or a Senge. So like for instance, say Malluak and Fears are gone and they go Bryant, okay, then you trade it for Demon. But all right, if you get Malluak at 8 and say Demon's not there at 13, okay, now you go with a Senge or Bryant, whoever's available. So I think it's like a mix and match of how they're trying to route this. But again, it's all going to depend on on draft night and who ends up getting taken. Like, we're starting to see things that Harper may not go 2, or the Spurs may not be fully invested in Harper at 2, that Philly wants to trade back or trade up. Like, the next 2 weeks is going to get ridiculous, which is why I was kind of hoping that this series would go much quicker between Indiana and OKC, because the league isn't going to allow trades to go through while the finals are on, unless if it gets to like game 6 or 7, then they may start letting some fly. But, you know, if this series goes to 7, that's 3 days before the draft. So you're celebrating your finals on the 22nd, and the 23rd, you could start seeing a shit ton of trades start going through. So I was hoping the series would end much quicker so we can see that earlier.
And I told y'all when Indy beat Cleveland the way they did, I said Indy was going to win the championship. Everybody laughed at me.
You did. I still got OKC in 7 though.
I got Indy in 7. I'm sticking with Indy at 7.
Indy in 7. So they have to lose game 6 at home and then win game 7 on the road.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not necessarily. They could win 6 and 7 in theory, but yeah, that's the way.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Teams, let's just say that is the case. Teams that win game 6 of any playoff series usually has a 70% or higher chance of winning the finals. I did see a stat, though, that just came out that says usually the team that's up 2-1 in the finals wins at an 81% clip. So, yeah, the odds are in Indiana's favor. But the betting odds were also in OKC's favor heavily at the start, and they still are. So it's like, you know, do they know something? Are these stats meant to be broken? I don't know. We'll see. We're 3 games in, and we haven't seen a game where SGA, Jalen Williams, and Chet have all played at an elite, efficient level all at once. So it's like, will we see that? And if so, are they stoppable? I don't think so.
And a former co-host said that Halliburton is better than Brunson because Halliburton doesn't flop his arms. So factor that in the mix.
Oh man.
So do we all kind of agree that we think if the Nets stick and pick at 8 that it's going to be Con Kneppel? Do we?
No, I'm not putting it into the fucking universe. Everybody kept saying, "Oh, the Nets are going to get top 3 this, top 3 that." No, we didn't. You guys jinxed us. You screwed us. You told us that ethical tanking works. It doesn't. Same thing for this. Don't even put Kneppel or Fears into the universe. We're going to draft Kasparis Yakachonis at 8, and we're going to like it, meaning that we're not going to take him and hopefully we get the guy that we want.
I don't even my top 10. Okay.
I don't either. Let's just say it though, so this way whoever's listening, you know.
Well, King was here to say about Kneppel. Like, here, let me ask you a question, because you're a Duke guy, and I know you've done a ton of film study on
thorough
this.
background.
Can Con Kneppel create his own shot in a half court? Can he create a mid-range shot for himself in a half court set? Can he?
Yes.
All right, I'll take your
word. So if you look at Kneppel, so for people, listen, Con Kneppel is not liked by many simply because of his name and the goofiness that he plays with. That is really it. Kneppel's a very solid player, though. If you watch his 2-game sample size where Flag was off the floor because of the ankle sprain, he looked very, very good. You know, whether that be creating his own shot, having a mid-range game, being able to finish at the rim, space the floor, defend, he did it all. He's a very underrated playmaker at 6'7". Like I've said all along, I think he reminds me of a modern version of Klay Thompson. So, no, I don't necessarily think that's a horrible pick, but if it is the pick, yeah, we're all going to be disappointed. You know, it's Con Kneppel.
Con Kneppel, Carter Bryant are both sitting there at 8. Who are you taking?
That's so tough.
It's not tough. I swear to you, it's not.
That is tough. That's a very tough pick. It's like, do you want a guaranteed third option, or do you want a guy with the upside of a second option?
Who's got the upside of the second option in that?
Bryant.
Okay. But then if you think Bryant's got even more upside because of his athleticism, I'm guessing.
Yeah, no, Nate, we all hate Con as
close
a net.
to me. I think Carter Bryant's got tremendous upside.
No, I agree. And to answer Nate, yes, I don't want Con Kneppel at 8. Nobody wants Con Kneppel as their first pick in a draft. But at the end of the day, if it is the pick, it's not a horrible pick. It's not the flashy pick that we all want. Like, he would probably be my 6th or 7th option in terms of who I would want at 8. You know, that's not good, but it's also, he's not a bad player. He's just not flashy enough to have an all-star caliber ceiling to his game.
He's not flashy, and the ceiling is a lot lower because the floor is so much higher.
Yeah.
He's Cam Johnson 2.0. I don't want
Him-
Cam Johnson.
I would say him, Flag, and Harper probably have the highest floors out of the top 10, meaning that they're probably solidified players in this league for who they are.
I think he's right.
All right. I'm going to take your guys' advice. I'm going to keep an open mind to Con. Yeah, Cam can shoot, and that's all he can do. And like I look at Con Knippel, and I say that's Cam Johnson. He can shoot. There's no question that Knippel can shoot, right?
Yeah, and he's going to move a lot better.
Hey,
Garrett's
Brian
gonna move
Lewis.
a lot better.
Brian Lewis answered our friend, our former co-host. He said, as I've said, the Nets are actively trying to move up, but that's broad. That can be up into another lottery pick or up from number 8. He said, I'd hope they at least discuss number 3 out of due diligence, but at what cost? That Paul George contract with a 15% trade kicker is huge. So I don't see it being for Paul George. I think that's all smoke. I also think that's smoke coming from Philly's end. I also don't think Airy Report is a reliable source. So I'll just say that blatantly. But yeah,
well, like, even if it's not a reliable source, is he taking it from someone who is a reliable source? You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe he didn't crack that news himself. Maybe he copied and pasted it from someone who is a reliable source, which would still make the information reliable. I don't think that trade's going to happen. I agree with you. I think there's almost a 0%.
I think it would be stupid for it to happen. Like I said, I think Charlotte and Washington are the 2 teams in terms of trade ups that are the most valuable to Brooklyn because you don't have to give up insane amounts. But I also am at the point where, like, just say in a really weird world that Flag, Harper, Ace, Fears, and Mallowock are the first 5 picks. No, I'm not trading up to 6. Just stay at 8. You already missed out on the guys you want, so stay at 8 and get a second lottery pick to add more value. But regardless, I think I'm at the point now where I value 2 lottery picks over moving up to 3. I'm far past these whole Ace things. The only guy that I'm moving up for is Harper, if he's available, and that's it. At this point, though, I'm sticking with 2 lottery picks and building with that. Take the OKC approach. We don't have our SGA yet, but when they got SGA, they drafted Chet and they drafted Jalen Williams, both within the lottery in the same year. Take that approach. Go get your Chet and your Jalen Williams and go find your SGA later. I think that's how they got to base it now. Whether that be in next year's draft or via trade.
You make it sound like it's an easy thing to get an SGA caliber player. Like, and then you have to the MVP league.
No, the
a top
SGAs
10 or 12 player in the league. They don't grow on trees.
No, they don't.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I completely agree. I'm more so saying, like, go grab your foundation, right? Go try and find your second and third option players who will play well with a first option. And hey, if you land top 3 next year, you may have just found your first option. DeBansta, Boozer, Peterson, they all have first caliber, upside. So see what you can do with that. But at this point, with how the lottery went, with the teams that are ahead of us, no, I'm not openly going out of my way to help a team like San Antonio or Philly. These teams have been gifted everything by the league. I'm not giving them more for them to trade back. Fuck them. That's not how I'm doing it.
Pete, appreciate you having on. You want to close? You got any final thoughts? And why don't you plug your channel one more time?
Let's go Nets. You can follow me at NetFans, on YouTube and Twitter. I'm going to drop an episode next week. And yeah, man, thanks for having me on, boys.
Oh, a quick question for Dylan. Dylan, we got to do a mock draft.
Yes.
What's it, tomorrow?
Yeah, let's go tomorrow morning. Let's do it. I'll use
it
for my next article too. I got to do my mock offs, or my mock draft 2.0. So,
Pete, you want to join us for the mock draft tomorrow?
If I'm free, I'll stop by. How about that?
I'll send you a link, and I'll try to make sure the link that I send you works this time. I'll try.
That would be good.
I'll try to make sure of that. All right, so we'll be back tomorrow. Want to do this time 11:30? What are you thinking, Dylan?
Yeah, let's go 11:30 start time.
All right, I'll send you a link, Pete. If you can jump on, we'd love to have you.
Let's go.
Appreciate you, Pete. Talk soon.
From Texas to the world, thank y'all, and God bless.
Later.